How you doing? My name is Roshan. I'm the organizing director with the Pure Justice Organization. We're here with Shautay. Topic of conversation is police accountability, community safety. One of the purposes behind the conversation, normally when we go to city council, commission's court, normally the people that's there to speak on the topic are people that could actually afford not to go punch a clock. They don't work, and they are there every single commissions court, every single city council meeting, and the things that they talk about that's needed for community safety, they want to implement in areas, one, they don't live in, two, in areas from people that I can almost assure they hadn't talked to or spoke to anyone from the area where they are advocating for particular changes where they don't understand lifestyle. So the purpose here, we want to bring people from particular communities that can speak for themselves and tell you what community safety looks like to them, what police accountability looks like to them. And we would like to share this with other people who may not be able or will not step into particular areas of life because these are just not places that they will go for any reason, but yet advocate for certain changes in these areas. So Shautay, what area do you represent? And go ahead and give us a brief intro.
Sure. Hi, my name is Shautay. I'm currently the manager of civic engagement with Baker Ripley. And I am really, really just passionate about advocacy work in regards to anything ranging from, policy accountability, ending the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration, and things like that. I'm new to Houston, but I moved first into the third ward, and now I'm just a few minutes, I think, south, and now I'm in Herman Park. So this is my area here.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and jump into it. And Shautay, your personal opinion, do you feel or believe law enforcement keep impoverished communities or poor communities safe?
In my opinion, I'm going to say in general, no. We know of the complicated history of policing and where the origins of policing come in regards to like slave catchers and things like that. And in my personal belief, police forces today operate in the same realm of responding to what they consider crime as opposed to preventing crime and addressing the issues that may possibly be the cause of crime. Police forces don't address things like poverty, low income, and low employment, and other issues that lead to crime. They just respond to crime. So to answer the question, no.
So you would say law enforcement, in your words, they are more reactionary over preventative.
Yes.
Have you ever been abused by law enforcement, whether verbal or physical?
Yeah, there was one situation where I had the police calling on me and a close friend of mine while doing homework at a Panera Bread. We weren't abused, but we were kicked out of the Panera Bread for absolutely, for not doing anything. Like, we came in, we were doing work. This was during the height of the pandemic, so we didn't have any other else to go. And we weren't causing any harm, but we had the police called on us and was escorted out without hearing our side of the story.
Did you feel law enforcement overstepped because, there was maybe a call, like you said, they didn't hear you out. They just came, seen you, young Black lady, you and your friend, and just said, hey, you got to go? Or like, how do you feel?
Yeah, not only did I feel like the police overstepped, but I also feel like the police was weaponized against me. And this was very, like, during the unwake regarding George Floyd. This happened around that time. And, with such a hostile environment with Black people and the police, I think having the police called in the first place was used very intentionally for a very minor issue that could have been resolved without involving the police. No crime was committed.
Did you report this to anybody?
I didn't. I recorded it and put it on social media, but no, I really didn't know who to report. This is when I was living in Chicago, though. But these injustices are nationwide. It's a systemic issue.
Do you believe reporting police abuse to law enforcement is an effective way to seek justice?
Absolutely not. We've seen historically that they, support their own. You can't report the person who's doing wrong to you to themselves. It's just like counterproductive.
I get you. So I'm about to tell you something, and I'm not sure if you know or not. But once you inject or put money into law enforcement budget, you can't take it back. So the money you put in law enforcement here in 2023, when 2024 come, you have to maintain that budget. Whatever you gave them last year, you have to give them this year. If you give them a raise this year, that raise must stand next year. Every year you give an increase in budget, you can't take it back. It can't be rolled back no matter what. Law enforcement, HPD, right now at this very moment, Houston Police Department budget is $4 million. $4 million away from $1 billion with a capital B. So HPD budget is pretty much at $1 billion budget. How does that make you feel to know law enforcement is $4 million away from $1 billion budget when people in the community have been and still are struggling with food and housing insecurities?
No, that's actually infuriating. I don't think any police force needs $1 billion at all. I think that those funds would be better reallocated, like you said, to, putting healthy food into neighborhoods, but also like addressing, like we said before, addressing the root issue. Just throwing money at the reaction is not going to address the systemic issues that cause people to do what they have to do to survive. People need these resources, whether that's better schools, better grocery stores, better public transportation, better access to employment in their neighborhoods. Money needs to be funneled there rather than keep increasing these budgets for police departments. And that's everywhere.
Wow. You kind of went into my next question. I'm still going to ask, but how do you feel if the law enforcement budget was frozen? And I want to be clear when I use the word froze, because most people instantly revert to a defund. And it's not a defund. And when people mentally hear defund, it's like just getting rid of all police. So I'm talking about a budget freeze, this budget that's $4 million away from $1 billion, meaning not add another penny to HPD's budget so we could actually put money into community needs like building grocery stores and grocery deserts, or funding our educational system, or putting money into housing or transportation, which again, you kind of answered this, but how would you feel if we actually froze HPD budget so we could address real community need?
I think that would be just the start. I think that's a great starting point for the solution. And I'll echo what I've been saying before. There's systemic change that needs to take place. So yes, I think that freezing their budget so that it can't keep increasing year by year is a great start. But we also need to make sure that those dollars that we will be saving is properly allocated and going into the neighborhoods that need them the most. Because we've seen historically, when we go and we vote on these bonds, they claim that they are going to first worst. But as we see, the worst gets it last. And so I think this is a good very first step, but continuing to make sure that those funds are being allocated to the appropriate sources is where we need to go from there. And also, the work that we do in organizing and, I think a really good solution also is supporting and upbringing mutual aid projects and really getting the neighborhoods and communities themselves, the tools to be able to sustain themselves. Because as we see, society is not going to come and swoop down and save us and help us out.
Of course. If you could prevent law enforcement from doing any one thing you want, I'm talking about like chokeholds, no-knock warrants, making arrests on nonviolent charges, traffic stops, dispatch on civil cause, etc. If you can prevent law enforcement from doing one thing, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. If I had to choose one thing that I would say like stop and frisk type things where they just use suspicion or probable doubt or downright racial profiling to pick out certain people who look like me and you and use that as a way to stop you and see what you're doing, see what you got going on. Too many people have gotten caught up in those type of things. You can just mind your business as a Black person in America, and now you're getting shipped off to jail because the police officer was like, let me get him. And so I think if I had to choose one thing amongst the many problematic things, I think that would be the one I would choose.
Have you ever heard of ShotSpotter?
No, what's ShotSpotter? Oh, is that like the app where they like, oh no, those are things they have like around Houston where like it's like it registers if you can hear a gunshot and it dispatches the police out?
Supposedly, right? So yes, ShotSpotter is an initiative where they primarily put these devices in Black and brown and impoverished communities in areas where people have no idea this is in their neighborhood. They don't know what it looks like. They have no idea what it is. And the reason that they say they put these here is so that when gunshots are fired, the device will send a message to HPD, let them know guns are fired right here in this area. And what happens is that stop and frisk you're talking about, it enforces stop and frisk. So now, whether it's a car backfiring, something falling off a truck, an actual gunshot, whatever, a loud anything can set this thing off that sends a signal to HPD saying shot fired, and HPD is immediately dispatched to the area, and everybody in a 5-mile radius can be stopped, frisked. You could be walking to the store because you can't afford a car, going to get milk for your baby, TV fall off a truck, bang happens, signal goes into this area, you get stopped because you in this area, you got a joint, you in trouble, or you got protection without a license, you in trouble. How do you feel about ShotSpotter? A lot of people who live in these areas don't even know what ShotSpotter is.
Yeah. And I think I've maybe heard it once or twice. But yeah, no, that is very intentional, the places that they target with these type of things. And that's infuriating. It's just people just trying to make a living and support and provide for their family and just live. And it's just all these constant threats of the police don't come get me now. Oh, and that's so infuriating. And we really need to work towards remediating these things.
That's right. Shautay, give me a few words of emotion that come to mind when being pulled over by law enforcement.
A few words of emotion: concern, fear, confusion. I don't know if you want me to go into depth about the words, but
you just give me words of how you feel.
Yeah, sure.
When you encounter law enforcement at a traffic stop. Any word of emotion that come to mind.
Yeah, I'll say like fear and concern, worry. I met with you recently at the town hall with Jolanda Jones regarding Dominic Champion, who had the police called on him just for practicing his art outside of, in a public area at UH. And I really resonated with that. I just graduated with my master's from UH, and I spent a lot of time outdoors and, enjoying the outdoors. And like, to hear that a master's student outside of UH was just minding his business, doing his work, and had a gun pulled on him by a police officer, that's scary. It's like, no matter what you do, no matter how many degrees you get, no matter if you comply with the police, no matter how you present, like, nothing. They see this black skin and it's a threat, and that's scary. And so whenever, there is interaction with police officer, I'm thinking, what are they thinking? Like, what do they think about me? What do I look like a threat to them? I could have a piece of paper in my hand and they could think, oh, this is a threat. And that's scary.
Right. Very, very scary. Define what police accountability looks like to you. And do you feel that is happening across the country today?
Police accountability. I think police accountability takes on multiple different forms. I consider myself an abolitionist, and in the minds of a lot, like, abolition is like this really big, scary term that a lot of people don't understand. And, the main concept of it is a system that is operating in the way that it was intended cannot be reformed. And so, as we think about these type of reformation strategies, take it with a grain of salt. I do believe that, society without what we think of prisons and policing today, like, without that at all, would be more beneficial. But if I had to think of small ways to get there, or small ways to improve police accountability until we can, live in a world where there's no need for policing and prisons, I would say police accountability looks like, stronger punishments for police officers who commit excessive force. Too many times have we seen police being videotaped, obviously exerting excessive force, and no reprimands were, came of that. I think, and it's a stretch, but like improving police relationship with the community members. We have these people who come in with these implicit biases and preconceived notions about the communities that they never lived in before. They don't look at the people in the community as people, but more so as statistics or criminals. We actually have a program that a few of our community members who had these same concerns about police officers in their communities, and we call it Cafe con la Policia, where we invite police officers who serve in our neighborhoods to come out and speak with community members and listen to their concerns. And I really just believe in the importance of human relationships. So even though as a whole policing is flawed as a system, I think small steps like these put us in the right direction to addressing the disconnect that sometimes occurs between police and communities.
Okay. Could we improve the safety of the community by investing more in community instead of law enforcement?
Yes. Echoing what I was saying earlier, there's a lot of strength and perseverance in a lot of these communities that we have identified as, I like the term you use often, is it high, what do you call it? High interest or?
High creative.
Highly creative. I love that.
That's what we are. We are creative.
Yes, we are. If people are systemically oppressed and don't have access to resources, you got to be creative on how you're going to survive. And, to answer your question, taking this money that is often funneled through police, I feel like we have a tendency to be like, here, y'all take care of it, like having other responses to certain situations in these high creative communities can really help. Like, even if we do still have police to respond to crimes, spend money into addressing, like, drug, like, if you see somebody on the street having a drug reaction or a mental health crisis, like, we should have a number or a department or someone who specializes on that, because a gun is not going to help somebody that's having a mental health crisis. Handcuffs is not going to address somebody who's stuck on opioids.
Alternative response team.
Yes, alternative response teams. I think that is the best way to go from here, instead of continuously funneling money into police to respond to all of these things, because honestly, that's really not their scope of practice. They're responding to crime. Everybody is not a criminal. And even those who are criminals deserve to be treated with human respect.
Yeah. Actually, so you kind of leading into my last question for you, right? And it was, what kind of resources could the community use in order to create safe communities outside of law enforcement? And you just identified alternative response teams. Would you like to elaborate or give additional resources that could be used in order to create safe communities? Or?
Sure. Yeah. In addition to alternative response teams, I think also, facilities where people who are struggling with drug abuse, things like, having treatment facilities within the communities. I think that, like we said before, having access to healthy and good quality and affordable foods is a really, really big way to make our communities safer and healthier. Equitable access to good quality schools and resources for those schools and teachers for those schools who are not burnt out. As a social worker, I think it's really important to have access to good, adequate healthcare, whether that's physical or mental, and just really funneling resources into communities. We've both addressed it throughout this interview. The main source of crime is poverty or lack of resources. And so the more resources that we can funnel into these highly creative neighborhoods, the better off and the safer they'll be for the people in the community and the people outside and surrounding these communities.
I thank you for that, Shautay. Especially addressing, like the reasons behind crime, or the reasons behind, breaking the law, the reasons why people do what they do. I
Mm-hmm.
always say one of the best and easiest ways to have somebody to do something against the law, knowing it's a strong possibility they may get caught. You under resource them and squeeze them for everything that you can squeeze them for. And then
Mm-hmm.
you over police them. What we have a lack of, we're going to get creative to figure it out. So in our world, when we are thinking about safety, you know, we're thinking about, like our needs in order to be safe. Our needs to be safe is housing, food, it's clean socks and underwear, it's being able to just take care of me and my household. I really thank you for this interview. You know, this was good. This will give people the opportunity to hear from community members, that come from certain places, again, that they may not have talked to before defining what community safety look like to them that don't come from where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again, and until next time.
Also, thank you so much, Roshan.